Once upon a time, about 30 years ago, there were a bunch of people who loved to make weird, funny and atmospheric games. Ron Gilbert, Gary Winnick, David Fox and several people more worked at Lucasfilm Games, later to be known as LucasArts, where they created such hits as Maniac Mansion, Zack McCracken and Monkey Island. These games were so-called point-and-click adventures, which compared to earlier interactive fiction or text adventures, used colorful graphics, musical score and animations to tell the story of the game more vividly. Combine that with humor, great storytelling and you can start to understand why people would love these games. I myself was deeply inspired to go into computer science with the goal to be able to make such games myself, because I started playing Zack McCracken and Monkey Island on my very first PC. Then Doom happened. Well, not only Doom, but a plethora of other genres, such as first-person shooters in general, real-time strategy, MMORPGs and the like. Those games were in part more action-rich, had better replay value in a sense, or could generate continuous revenue like in the case of online RPGs. This is something that adventure games would never achieve, and they were actually pretty expensive to make compared to that. Go forward 25 years and witness an interesting Kickstarter project. Thimbleweed Park. The LucasArts fellows of several decades ago joined up forces again for a project to reboot the adventure genre, which was never really gone but which definitely disappeared from the center stage of gaming for the last 20 years or so. And successful it was. More than 15,000 people brought over $500,000 into the project and made this a really successful game, featuring voice acting, great storytelling and puzzle design. I personally was absolutely amazed by the game and I also funded it on Kickstarter. Both Monkey Island as well as Thimbleweed Park feature a classic interface. Verbs on the bottom left to direct your character and an inventory of objects at the bottom right. The upper half of the screen is filled by the current scene you are walking in. You perform inventory object puzzles and also talk a lot to in-game characters to progress the story. This is all very familiar to us and it's what we enjoy.
It's my closed safe where I keep all my money. It's exactly $1,138 in unmarked.
Fast forward another 2 years and the corona pandemic hits the world hard. But suddenly, amidst the chaos, I see a tweet by David Fox. A new minigame has been released by the Thimbleweed Park team. It's a kind of a prototype of a new game engine by Gilbert, which reuses assets of the original Thimbleweed game. You play as Delores, one of the protagonists of the original Thimbleweed game. Her task is to take a bunch of photographs that are prescribed by her boss, the head of the Nickel newspaper. Your first task is to actually find the camera and check the list that your boss gave you. The hints on those lists are actually pretty vague and you have to explore the world quite a bit to figure out what is actually meant. Usually, most of the time it's pretty straightforward, but there are a couple of puzzles in there that need you to do several steps or do some weird thinking and interpreting the various hints that are given throughout the game. None of the puzzles given are actually illogical or not solvable at all, and the game is probably solvable in about an hour. It took me maybe 2 hours, a couple of minutes more, because I actually got stuck on one puzzle of the first game. And yeah, you will probably have some roadblocks yourself, but with a bit of thinking and searching of the areas, you will definitely make progress. All throughout the game you will visit familiar places and meet familiar characters. However, you can only visit a couple of scenes. Most of the original game is locked off. Once you complete all 5 photographs, you can return to the Nickel News to turn them in. The game will end there, but note that your boss tells you that if you run the game again, you will get more tasks. Make sure to do this, because there's an end to all of this, and if you don't complete all tasks, you will truly miss the true ending. Similar to the original game, there are some very nerdy in-game jokes, like this photo book here, and if you remember correctly, Delores is actually a game programmer herself, so this is pretty fitting. The useful thing are the in-game options and the help. The help explains all the important buttons and the click actions, and the options actually allow you to disable a few of the more annoying things. For example, I dislike the beeping, or when you hover above any object or something, you can turn that on and off as you like. Probably the most complex puzzle in the game is turning on the light in the bathroom of the Quickie Pal. And since this is necessary in the replays of the game, this is actually stored as solved for all continuing gameplays. So once you restart the light, it will stay on for the remainder of your playthroughs, which accelerates playing a lot, because basically in all the playthroughs you always take photos and do more or less the same thing all over again. So this doesn't get too repetitive by taking this little shortcut. The game's pretty polished for a prototype and worked very well on my Mac, without any crashes. Some things are a bit rough. For example, I managed to take more photos of basically the same thing and get approval of the boss multiple times for that, but this didn't break the game or had major consequences. Also, multi-monitor setups are a bit confusing right now, because at least on the Mac, the mouse cursor is not captured. This leads to things like accidental clicking of neighboring apps. But all in all, this was a great experience and a very nice surprise. I hope that Ron, David and the others are already working on the next great adventure game, because I personally can't wait to see and play it. But for now, that's it. Please make sure to share, like and subscribe. Leave a comment about what you think about Thimbleweed Park and Delores, and I will hopefully see you soon. Bye!